The Dark Knight and the Man of Steel, Conflicting Ideologies in The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is a book of oppositions. Batman is juxtaposed with a series of opponents, each of whom personifies a different set of values and beliefs, which are read in opposition to his own. The mutant leader is the physical embodiment and actual figurehead of a neglected and misguided underclass. The Joker functions as a personification of all which Batman detests: chaos, injustice, and disorder. And Superman represents a perversion of the American superhero, one who has blurred the lines between doing good and acting to further American political interests. And Batman clashes with all these opponents without wavering, without giving even 1 inch. More than physical battles, these are battles of wills, and Batman will stop at nothing to hammer the rest of the world into submission. There is no dialectical blending. This is complete domination and subordination. Superman, the Boy Scout. I chose this nickname with which to examine Superman as a character because it is so telling of his own character. More than just stopping supervillains or ridding the world of evil and injustice, Superman at his core just wants to do good and help people. He is a relentless and morally incorruptible force for good, the superhero personified. Raised by Ma and Pa Kent on a little farm in Kansas, Superman is about as American as apple pie, a die-hard patriot, willing to fight for the ideals instilled in him by his adopted parents and his adopted nation. And acutely aware of his near immeasurable power, Superman has always been careful to prove he's not a threat to anyone. Aware that even the slightest misstep could cause the world to reject or attack him out of fear, he has always followed the rules to the letter, operating solely within the confines of the law and deferring to authority without question. Batman, the Caped Crusader. As with Superman, I selected this nickname to focus on because it reveals quite a bit about Batman. More than simply seeking to do good and help people, Batman fights a relentless battle to rid Gotham and the rest of the world of evil and injustice, whatever the cost. Brought up as an orphan in the upper class of a thriving city, Batman learned a very different set of morals from Superman. He's still guided by his strong moral compass, but his understanding of the world is predicated on the idea that the world is chaotic and unjust, not fundamentally good, and that this chaos and injustice needs to be forcibly purged, not merely balanced out by good deeds. Batman respects the justice system, but also perceives its flaws, operating outside of, but in concert with the police in Gotham, reinforcing what they do with his own brand of justice, imposed on his own terms. In The Dark Knight Returns, some of Superman's main characteristics are notably amplified. For one, his willingness to submit to authority has been exploited and perverted. Rather than acting on his own and respecting national and international authority, in his willingness to submit, Superman has reduced himself to little more than the president's lapdog. And his patriotism has been conflated with his moral compass. Rather than being a force for good whose morals are grounded in American ideals, Superman has conflated doing good with acting in America's interest. In The Dark Knight Returns, he's also shown a perceived superheroism and vigilantism, as we might conceive of them, as outdated notions, no longer thinking the public will tolerate superheroes walking amongst them and acting freely. In lieu of this belief, Superman distorts the role of the superhero in modern society, offering the American government his complete obedience in order to continue to be allowed to do good on their terms. A compromise. Batman does not compromise. As with Superman, some of Batman's main traits are amplified in The Dark Knight Returns. Rather than operating outside of, but in complement to the authorities, as soon as he faces even the slightest challenge from the police, Batman confronts them head-on, with as much ferocity as he would any mugger, thief, or supervillain who got in his way. And more than ever, he relies on fear, intimidation, and domination to bring his enemies to their knees until they're left with no choice but to change their ways. And perhaps most importantly, he treats his battle against injustice as a literal crusade, treating and even openly referring to his allies as soldiers, and his work a holy war. Though it's not fully explained in the graphic novel, Superman alludes several times to rising social pressures on superheroes which arose as a result of Batman's actions and led to his controversial retirement. Upon his return, with Batman operating in direct contravention of the law and dealing with criminals more brutally than ever, his return restores a great deal of this pressure. Superman quickly confronts Batman about this, warning him that he's headed down a dangerous path, but Batman refuses to yield or change his course in the slightest, and it soon becomes clear there's a great deal of tension between the two of them. Superman laments the fact that Batman refuses to play by society's rules and operate according to the rule of law, worried Batman's criminality and abrasiveness run roughshod over what he and society at large believe in. And Batman, on the other hand, seems to have virtually no respect left for Superman, condemning the way in which he's subordinated himself and given up any semblance of free will in exchange for the ability to pursue in a limited capacity politically motivated good. These beliefs and the tension they create between the two men seem to make it clear that conflict is inevitable, not because the president or anyone else is going to order Superman to take Batman down, but because the ways in which they think and operate are at their center fundamentally incompatible, and the world simply isn't big enough for the both of them. Things come to their expected head when Superman is ordered to bring down Batman, obliging with a seemingly heavy heart, but also a resigned acceptance and deep understanding. In a subtle pathetic fallacy, even the setting for their fight reflects the ways in which they operate as heroes. Superman stands strong, protected and surrounded by authority, the military, and Batman, of course, cuts a swath right through that authority with a tank he built by himself. Both Superman and Batman arrive to the fight with blinders on. Superman mentally blocking out what Batman has to say on ideological grounds, and Batman covering his ears so he is unable to hear what Superman has to say. We get almost the entire fight from Batman's point of view, so it's hard to tell how Superman feels throughout the fight, but Batman's frustration is clear as he reiterates his loathing Superman for giving in and bending the knee, rather than remaking the world into a better place on his own terms, as Batman has always sought to. In the penultimate moment of the fight, Batman sums up their stark contrast and individual shortcomings the best, saying, "I've become a political liability, and you're a joke." I think that statement, more than anything else, gets to the heart of their friction and their ultimate incompatibility. Superman sees Batman as an aberration that refuses to fit into his socio-political reality, and Batman sees Superman as pathetic, the world's strongest man with no power of his own. While the outcome of their physical fight has been and will continue to be the subject of debate for years to come, I would argue that Batman comes out on top of the Battle of Wills. With his pseudo-death at Superman's hands, he goes out on his own terms, guns blazing, never yielding an inch in his beliefs to the very last. Moreover, that pseudo-death allows him to live out the rest of his life on his own terms, free from the constraints of society and authority, devoting his remaining years to training the next generation of soldiers to continue his crusade. And not only that, but in his death, Batman provokes from Superman the only act of defiance of authority we see in the entire graphic novel, when he bellows, "Don't touch him!" to an army closing in on Batman's dead body. It's not much, I know, but enough to show that Batman had an effect, however slight, on Superman, who was never able to do a single thing to sway Batman from his cause or his beliefs. While Batman doesn't humiliate or crush Superman in the same way he does the mutant leader or the Joker, he does come out on top, unwavering in his methods, his beliefs, and his values until the very end. Thank you.